Let's be honest, not every backpacking trip goes to plan, and sometimes the backpacking trip can actually suck. The reason I'm saying that is just recently went through a situation like that where I had a backpacking trip that did not work out, and I thought, you know what, let's talk about that today. And on top of talking about that, we're also going to go over a couple other instances that I've experienced where backpacking trips either didn't work out, situations came up, stuff that you can't really plan for, even stuff that you do plan for. It can make a backpacking trip absolutely suck. I was planning on taking my son on his very first backpacking trip. I was fortunate enough to get a booking in Jasper National Park for one of my favorite areas. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the park. It's a very, very easy hike, perfect for a first timer, perfect for a hike taking your kids. And leading up to the trip, everything was looking awesome. We had a great weather window. It was supposed to be beautiful. And the morning of the trip, everything just kind of went to hell. We got up early because we have about a 4-hour drive to the trailhead, and we wanted to get on trail by about 9 o'clock so that we could use the cooler hours in the morning to do our hiking and then enjoy the site and, have a nice place to sit down and relax when it got hotter in the afternoon. About 2 hours into our drive, my little guy started getting sick. We were driving along, and when you get a 3-year-old in the back seat that tells you, "Dad, I feel crummy," and you look in the rearview mirror and he's throwing up all over himself. Yeah, not the greatest time when you're 2 hours away from home. So we pulled the truck over, got him all cleaned up, and then he told me he felt fine. So the next town where we were going to stop and actually get breakfast was about half an hour down the road. So I thought, okay, you know what? We'll drive to that town, kind of see how he is. Maybe just getting up that early in the morning didn't sit well with his stomach. Got to that town and he threw up again. So from that point, I made the choice that, it's not worth continuing on if something's, going on with his stomach. And we turned around and we headed home. So on the 2-hour drive home, he threw up twice more. Thankfully, by the time we got home, he was perfectly fine. Not really 100% sure what was going on with him. I'm not sure if it was nerves, probably nerves, could have been that and a combination of getting up early. Like I said, we left pretty early. We were up at about 4:30 in the morning. He's not really used to being up that early. So yeah, that one definitely put a bit of a downer on a backpacking trip. If you guys follow the news or you're from Alberta, you probably know currently Jasper National Park is on fire. The entire park is closed. It's the last handful of summers, forest fires have been an issue. They have wrecked a lot of backpacking trips for me. Most recently in 2022, I tried to plan out a subscriber backpacking trip. I had a lot of people interested. It looked like we were gonna have like 15 to 20 people show up and all go off on this gorgeous, amazing hike. And 2 days before the backpacking trip was supposed to start, a forest fire started in the area that we were gonna go hiking. It was a mad scramble for me to try and, decide on whether or not I was going to go forward with the subscriber hike. Should I try and plan an alternate area? I had done a lot of preparation and planning to make sure I had an area that was going to accommodate that many people. I decided to go ahead with the trip in a different area. Obviously, this didn't really work out for a lot of people. We didn't have a very big turnout. That was kind of a letdown. I was really, really looking forward to getting to, spend time with a lot of you guys and gals and get to know some of you guys, but it just didn't really work out. Now, if forest fires are not the main concern in the area I'm going hiking, it can often be the smoke. From watching a YouTube video, all you're probably gonna notice is, the hazy skies and the lack of views. And when you're out on a trip, that can be an absolute downer. You plan out these amazing routes and you go to some of these amazing places and you wanna get these iconic views. And we are very, very blessed to get some gorgeous views up here in the Canadian Rockies. And when you head out on a backpacking trip and all you get is smoky skies, it can really suck. But what you may not notice, from watching on a screen and what I experience when I'm behind the camera is what the smoke does to my lungs. You can't always account for smoky conditions. I don't often go out hiking when I know the conditions are going to be really smoky. But it's one of those things where you can head out on a backpacking trip with clear blue skies and literally within the matter of minutes, you can get a shift in the wind and all of a sudden you have the most smoky, disgusting, hazy skies imaginable and just wreaks havoc on your lungs. All you can taste is smoke every time you breathe in and you're hacking and coughing and yeah, it's an awful, terrible experience. It's put a big damper on a lot of my backpacking trips. It's caused me to cut backpacking trips short at times. I've gone out on a trip and the smoke got so bad that I turned a 4 or 5 day backpacking trip into a single night trip. Sometimes I even hike out the same day. Just kind of depends on when you get that shift in the wind and when the smoke decides to roll in. Now, something that I'm always prepared for on every backpacking trip I go on is weather. You know, I've always got my rain jacket on me. In the wintertime, I've got warm clothing, I've got extra jackets, that kind of thing. Even with a rain jacket, hiking in the rain absolutely sucks. And if you head out on a backpacking trip for 5 or 6 days and you get rain for 5 or 6 days, I don't know anybody out there who's gonna say that that backpacking trip was awesome. When you're soaked and everything is wet, your gear is heavy, it can be an absolutely miserable experience. Last September, I was out on an epic backpacking trip to a couple very remote lakes in the Canadian Rockies. On day 3 of this trip, we got hit with a ton of rain, and it made for a very, very tricky, precarious spot as we were doing an off-trail traverse in the high alpine. A lot of the rocks we were walking on got very, very slick, scrambling through boulder fields, you know, going up and down a lot of really sketchy, steep hills, that kind of thing. And yeah, just the rain put a big damper on the trip. We knew going into this trip weather may have been a factor, and we planned this route knowing that we had a couple bailout points, and we were forced to use one at one point. We got to a point in the day where we realized the amount of distance that we still had to travel to get to the lake we planned on camping at that night based on the weather conditions that we were currently experiencing. And you know, the forecast that I pulled off my InReach said that the weather was not going to improve at all and it was actually going to get worse. We made the choice to bail out down a valley, and you know, we didn't make it to the second lake we wanted to. It was kind of a downer. Sometimes even having all the right gear and all the right preparation isn't going to stop weather from absolutely ruining a trip. Something that I've had to take into account over the last couple of years is my body and my physical condition and injuries that can happen out on trail. Over the years, I've dealt with some knee and hip issues. I've blown my ACL out twice on one of my knees, and I've dealt with some pretty nasty hip issues from a lot of jiu-jitsu and wrestling and a lot of high-impact sports throughout my life. And in my late 30s, I'm kind of paying for it. It has resulted in some injuries on trail, some discomfort, and it's kind of forced me to change the way that I backpack. Years ago, a 40-kilometer day out on trail was nothing, and now I've kind of limited myself to about half of that distance. So it's kind of made me, swallow that ego pill a little bit. There's times where, I'm forced to do a little bit longer day, and I just kind of know that I'm going to be, knocking back a couple Advil and Tylenol at the end of the day. Not really a fan of that. I don't really like taking pills. The big one for me is my hips. It's not so much my knees anymore. My knees are only really affected when it gets cold, but my hips can be a big issue for me if I'm just pushing too many miles throughout the day. I get this really weird clicking in my right hip. It's one of those things I'm probably going to be forced to get a hip replacement at some point in my life. Really not looking forward to that. Thankfully, I haven't had any kind of catastrophic injury or anything like that where I've been forced to exit trail, but I've rolled ankles and I've twisted my knees, and like I said, my hip issues. Yeah, injuries absolutely suck. And I know a lot of you guys watching this video are probably thinking, how have you gotten this far in a video and you haven't talked about animal encounters? And animal encounters, especially up here in the Rockies, where you've got grizzly bears and cougars and wolves and black bears and just a bunch of different predatory animals that can definitely kind of throw a little bit of a wrench into a backpacking trip. Much like weather and other issues that can come up on trail, you take all the proper precautions. You make a lot of noise when you're out there on trail. Let's go! You've got your bear spray and different things to help yourself out if you end up with an animal encounter. Twice in my life, I've been charged by grizzly bears out on trail, and while it didn't ruin the trip to the extent where I had to leave trail and end up bailing on the trip, it's one of those things that is absolutely terrifying to go through. The adrenaline rush you get and the adrenaline crash, it's absolutely exhausting. The part that kind of sucks for me the most when I kind of look back on those trips is I don't remember a whole lot from those trips after the bear encounter. Just the big adrenaline dump and crash that you end up going through, it kind of ruined my memory of the backpacking trip. And all I really remember from those trips was the grizzly encounter. And that's a big downer, because one of the best things about backpacking trips is the memories that you make when you're out there, the memories with your friends, or even if you're solo. It kind of sucks when you look back on a trip and all you remember is a massive grizzly bear running towards you. And as always, I'm really interested to hear back from you guys. If there's any negative experiences that you guys have had out on trail, if there's anything that's ruined backpacking trips that I haven't covered or haven't really talked about, let me know in the comment section down below. I love hearing your guys' stories. And if you guys are interested in checking out any of the backpacking trips that some of these issues have happened on, check out either of these videos here. I'm sure you guys will enjoy. As always, guys, I'm Maddie. Thank you so dang much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.